Thank you for having me. Let's set up the presentation here, sorry. While I'm doing this, how many of you had to fly to come to this summit today? How many of you took an airplane? Please raise your hand so that I can see them. Okay, so all of you have taken trains, is that correct? No aircraft, no nothing, no transatlantic flight, no European flight, no none of that. Okay, that's good to know because I can adjust the presentation just a little bit in that regard. Okay, we are indeed a startup, an early stage company, and I was put in place by investors to provide the founders and the management with that much support as possible, because as noted many times, of course, all of you entrepreneurs know there's quite a bit of work to be done, and the crises are always coming. And it's quite exciting for me to be here as well, because our CEO put me here, or our president put me here to present on his behalf, and it'll be exciting to see if I'm still holding my position after these presentations. It's up to your, hopefully, positive feedback that relies on. Jorma is right here, and he is also staying here post the event, happy to answer any questions you may have. When I checked into my hotel, I found this card in the bathroom. And it was quite interesting. First, I immediately understood what this was all about. It was saying that essentially make us wash less laundry and we will plant trees. And I thought, okay, great, I guess they are carbon offsetting. Offsetting now what? Are they offsetting the actual the towels, or are they offsetting the washing process or the water usage? What is it? Or just the energy usage? It was unclear for me. Or are they perhaps offsetting some other component of the process, maybe the detergents? And then I got worried because I was thinking, wait a minute, has somebody already used my towels 3 times, and now for the last 2 I'm using them, and only then are they going to actually wash them? I don't want to ridicule this in any means. This is, by the way, what it said on the other side, on the other side of this card. This program that they're actually doing, the hotel chain that I was staying at, is of course the UN-initiated project where they are indeed planting. Their goal is to plant 1 billion trees every year, and right now I think they're at about 14 billion trees having been planted since they actually got going. As a small footnote, I don't know how familiar you are with Scandinavia, but Finland and Sweden are always locked in a brotherly match, and this is very painful to see that they're leading us. But I don't want to ridicule these types of initiatives, because of course the subject is extremely important. I think the question is whether or not these statements are meaningful and genuinely purposeful, and as an activity they're important. Are they true? Is the underlying activity true? We are a very, very early stage startup. We have received funding in the neighborhood of, well, let's say a 7 number figure. I can't go into the specifics, but this is all seed investments that have been made into the company. And this is partly because the industry we're in is extremely hard to enter without sufficient funding. This is an old industry, and we have entering this industry with new ideas, new thinking. I think this was one of the introductions earlier this morning, was that you would like to see and hear from companies that are taking old things perhaps and trying to rethink, do them in new ways. And I will describe our business model to you in detail, but first, I won't be selling you tickets nor pitch you as investors, so you're safe for the time being. The question, I guess, is whether or not you can have a sort of comprehensive look at being responsible in an industry that fundamentally burns carbon-based fuels. That is the core question. And can you do that so that you can remain competitive? And is it about hypocrisy, or are you actually doing that? Here are some brief statistics around air travel as a whole. And it's interesting to see, many of us have had, or certainly have, notions as to how much does air travel contribute to the overall climate change with regards to CO2. it's 2.5% according to the latest statistics, and these are fairly reliable. But it's a huge industry, and what's also interesting is that up to 7 billion people are expected to travel in 2030. So this is growing, and it has been growing regardless of the overall economy. So be it tourism or corporate, people will want to fly, and they will keep on doing it. By the way, the profits are not evenly distributed. If you look at airlines right now and the investability of airlines, you will see that some of them are doing good, some of them are doing really good, and quite many are not doing so good at all. So it's always a question of metrics here at play as well. Now, we absolutely have a CO2 offsetting scheme, but my talk today will not revolve so much around that, because we actually think that that is just one part of a bigger whole, and that is not in itself a silver bullet by any means. Now, we will start flying, physically flying, in 2 weeks. It's a big day for us as we speak. Our first aircraft is being inspected, flown into Finland, and we will start in the Nordics. I'll tell you a little bit more about that. And we are indeed, it is true, we are carbon neutral. But what's also interesting is that per flight hour, which is one key metric in this business, we are spending about 7 euros on this CO2 offsetting mechanism. And we're talking about percentages, single-digit percentages in the overall costs of the operation. Does it make us feel better? Sure. Does it make our customers feel better? Actually, we don't know. That's a very big question. And is it impactful? That is something which really is the core question, because as things stand right now, NGOs, non-governmental organizations, are actually asking this specific question. Is it actually purposeful, or are we somehow just buying ourselves a better conscience perhaps, and moving along and keeping on polluting in ways which simply aren't acceptable? Let's jump into an example of our segment that we look to serve. This, I don't know how many have been or know of a city by the name of Château in France. Please raise your hand, if any. None. Okay, this is in the wine district, very central France, a little bit north actually. And there is industry there. And there's also a company that has their site, it's an industrial site right outside of central Château. And what's also interesting is that outside of Château there's also an airfield. Which, by the way, no longer serves the general public. It used to be an international airport. It was called the Dassault. It's still called the Dassault Airport. Now, the sister company or sister unit of this specific site is in Schio, Italy. Any of you have been there or heard of it? It is west from Venice. And there's another airfield there as well. It's relatively close to that site. Now, this company in question has about 1,000-kilometer distance in between their two sites. And one thing which is constantly their challenge is that they have a physical travel imperative. They have to make this trip. There's no choice. These are engineers, these are salespeople, these are customer responsible people. They have to go. Telcos or video conferences simply will not do the trick. Now, 1,000 kilometers isn't that much, and in Europe, many hubs, many economic hubs are well served by highways. Of course, they're becoming increasingly congested, or by train services. But this specific route is of interest because the only way actually to move between these two is to find an airfield at some reasonable distance, and then after that, trying to find a route that actually serves this whole leg. And here's what it looks like. You will first have to leave Château. Poitiers is some of the closest ones. Then you take a connecting flight. For example, in this example, we're going through Lyon. Then you need to fly over to Venice as an example, which is another 140 kilometers, and then you drive. So overall, the distance between these two, by immediate numbers, close destinations, is actually quite long. And we're talking about, if you do this 4 times a month, we're talking about over a week's worth of work time spent on this. And this is prohibitive. And yet we have tons and tons of examples of companies which are in base industries. They are not that sensitive to economic, climate, or change that want to do this type of travel. Now, what we can do as a company is actually provide, if we find a reasonably or large enough number of customers, we can actually open a route for them. and the numbers are amazingly low for us to be able to do this profitably. So we will essentially open a route, and we will now render this flight time, this point-to-point travel time, to 2.5 hours at pretty much the same cost, and cut over 5 working days worth off of this company's professionals. Now again, we're not targeting executives that would like to charter jet aircraft, because that is, again, in another price point altogether. Okay, moving on. I'm jumping over. I had a poll for you guys prepared, but we will instead say that from a commercial perspective, as an entrepreneur myself with a history of setting up companies and building and exiting, as well as our president has, the key thing is that you also have to have a product that actually sells. And the best sort of acid test for that is it a must-have product? If you have a nice-to-have product, unless it's really entertaining, which maybe then renders it into a must-have product, it simply will not work. Go for the must-have and make sure that your product indeed is one. So simply deliver something that your customers cannot live without. Go Aviation took 2 years, and that's why we had a considerable seed investment underneath to set up and to be able to actually start flying, which will happen in a few weeks' time. And we have 3 unique features that we offer business travelers in Europe. First, it's an all-you-can-fly model. And this is something which, for an industry, is somewhat new. We're seeing some that have attempted this based on a sort of regular business model or regular aircraft. We do tailored routes, so we specifically map out first where our customers are, and we essentially operate pre-sold. So we will not fly 1 inch. We won't start the engines until we know that the customers are there and they're actually paying for that. And fast boardings. 2 weeks ago, of course, it was an extremely unfortunate event, a chain of events, that occurred in Luxembourg, but the wait times from the airport outside door were about 3.5 hours before you actually made it to the gate. You add to that travel times, etc. Suddenly, it's becoming impossible to do air travel, even for those professionals that have no choice and don't have access to private aircraft. So fast boardings, tailored routes, we go where the other airliners are leaving, and all you can fly at 1 fixed fee. And this is, by the way, economically sustainable as well. Our business recipe, one that our backers and investors have looked very hard at, is that we first lock and demand the demand. And what we really have going for us is that we have a first mover advantage. Impact was something that was discussed in the intro this morning. And this is how we define ours. This is our impact statement. I'll leave you read it. What I will do, however, is I will simply change the title there. And this is interesting to see, because suddenly our mission statement is actually exactly the same as is our impact statement. And further on, our business idea carries the same title and works equally well. We have 2 business enablers, which makes this possible. First of them, a really key one, is that we obtained an air operator certificate. This is something that the authorities award or issue for a company, and this allows you to operate commercially. And what makes ours so special is that single engine ops is something that has been somewhat of a matter of contention, understandably so. I'm sure many of you would even worry whether or not it is, or what is the risk inherent in flying an aircraft that simply has 1 engine. What happens if that 1 engine stalls or does not work? Now, the regulations around operations with a single engine aircraft actually render it safer than with a multi-engine aircraft, and I'm happy to tell you more about that later on. So you can understand that when this was submitted this February, after 16 months of work, there were some bottles of champagne opened, although a true startup will not actually start partying until the real revenue is forthcoming. We've actually invoiced the customer, and we are now within, I guess, a few weeks from that. We have pre-sold, by the way. What we have done is that we have gone through the motions of identifying the markets for us, and have again, this book building is the correct term. That's what we've done with our customers that are actually waiting us to arrive. The second enabler for us is, and this is quite interesting, this is a Swiss-engineered, Swiss-built, I guess, a pride of Switzerland in this industry, the Pilatus PC-12. It's not a very, it's an unassuming aircraft, I would guess, unless you've flown in one. It has a turboprop, but it does some things extremely cleverly. And one of them is that how much it consumes, or what the operating costs are, But another kicker with the PC-12 is that we can operate from a much wider selection of airfields than what other business jets can do, and of course single engines can't do commercially unless they meet a certain criteria, and the company that does that needs to have an AOC to do that. So for us, Germany looks like this. Now, if you are an industrial company in Germany, and you don't have to be among the largest ones, you can actually be within the SME definition of the EC, you will find that air travel for you to a customer, to a site, can take you hours because of the very fact that you need to drive to the airport, you have an hour lead time there, etc., etc., etc. I keep on repeating this because this is what we change back. Essentially, we sell our customers their time back. And what I'm trying to prove to you very soon is that we're doing this in a manner which hopefully is also, from an environmental and societal perspective, a good deal. We use terms overserved and underserved. Certainly some industry traditionalists would say, what the hell are you guys talking about? This is not the language used, but these are the terms that we use. What's happening right now is that regular airlines, from the Ryanairs to the Finnairs to the SASs and the others, they're flocking towards destinations where the numbers of travelers are as large as possible. And it makes some sense to them. So they're in fierce competition. Right now the fuel prices have helped them out a little bit. The greatest beneficiary is the consumer. Although the consumer, also the business traveler, is facing an airfield which is so full that you can't make it through. And then there's the other side, which is the underserved. These same airlines are leaving entire areas unattended, underserved. We're starting in Finland and in the Nordics first. I will raise one example. These are hard for you to pronounce. Kuopio, oh, where's the clicker? Oh, here it is, sorry. Kuopio is right over there. It's an unassuming town or city in smack central Finland, pretty close to Russia. But indeed there we have the leading forestry equipment manufacturer, Ponsse, as an example. They need to travel from Kuopio to Helsinki and onwards from Helsinki. There's a brewery company there who's also doing extremely well. And unfortunately, and for completely understandable reasons, the existing carriers are leaving because they're focusing on more trafficked routes. So this opens up a situation for us where it is not a very large number of customers that we need to find from Kuopio, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're starting from Kuopio, flying to Helsinki, to Tallinn, and then building a network from out of there. But of course our goal is in Europe, because that's where the real demand is. And actually, as a side note, just give us aircraft and some funding to scale, and we can operate with our AOC anywhere in Europe. We can essentially open a route and close one if need be within a few days, a week a maximum. And we have similar, of course, maps for Malmö and Hamburg and Brussels and on and on and on and on and on. So how do we position ourselves then commercially? Again, this is very much towards now the customer. There's price and there's convenience. We all know this. You can purchase an airline light ticket. It's very cheap, and we're not going against this pricing at all. But it also means that usually you have to purchase it way before, and if not, you have zero flexibility in that ticket. Then there's the economy class, which is used regularly. I actually flew economy to get here yesterday. I was able to, was lucky. But if I were to need more flexibility, I would do, of course, business class, which allows me to make changes. And that's what Jorma had to do in order to be able to travel like he has to. And then what happens is that for ultimate in convenience and flexibility, you also go to the ultimate in price. Now, in our book, this leaves a space that is currently underserved. And that's exactly where we're going. This is our market positioning. Onwards, this is a typical customer company that we're targeting. This is the typical traveler profile. Again, these are not executives. We do offer the travel experience in itself is very executive, if you will. The only difference between a Pilatus is actually it's a bit spacier than the smaller business jets, and there's the brumming sound as opposed to the maybe a little bit sexier turbine noise. Other than that, it's pressurized. It has a full lavatory inside. There's no cabin personnel. We fly 8 to 9 people at one go. I will save you these, because this is about positioning. This is what the inside of the aircraft looks like. And now we get to the core topic, I guess. So CO2, carbon offsetting, sustainability, CSR. How do we relate to these? Now, first, it's very hard to consume Jet 1A fuel sustainably. We have to realize that, and then to start playing with words and saying that, okay, well, we can do CO2 offsetting, we can plant trees. That doesn't necessarily hold water either. So there's other ways of looking at that. So maybe we should just leave it there and say, okay, this is one area where it's very difficult to be good. We can try to be as little bad as possible. Sure, we can. You know, a fun dream that somebody had the other day was that, okay, let's just wait until Tesla buys Airbus and starts manufacturing electric aircraft, and that might happen, but we're in a rush of doing it the other way in the interim. Now, CSR ensures that we are, for example, material optimized, and coming from the Nordics, that's, by the way, what we are. We have that in our DNA already by now. But I will go through the motions of quickly showing you what our CSR program framework looks like, so you get an idea. These are always all the same, and this is not to diss them at all, but the point is that how you render these into the core business that you're doing. So we look at all aspects of social responsibility, society, people, environment, and so on. Look at how we minimize negative impact and how we maximize positive impact. We have laws, regulations, recommendations that we work with. We have to make sure that our staff and our partners understand how these need to be taken into consideration in operations, leading into actions. And then there's feedback loops and so on. So this is something that we take very seriously, and it is all there. But here's where it all ties together. If we were to look at the three sort of core components as to where we generate profit, where we make money, for example, flying and serving in ways that other carriers and providers aren't doing right now. It's easy to say that, okay, that's just one single cornerstone, then you fly 100% full aircraft, so that's an economic issue, and then you do your offsetting. Okay, so you fly in ways and places where others don't, so now you're a competitive company. That would be the easy way out, and say that leads to that alone. Or that by offsetting and having a corporate social responsibility program, great, we are now a responsible program. But the thing is that all of these actually, in our business model, work together, and that is the sort of key thing. That is why we can actually comfortably state that indeed, in this space, we are uniquely responsible. One of the early statements that we had was this, and we stand behind it. We really do. To VCs and investors, first, I have to be very careful, so I guess I will go a little bit on a limb here and say all of the regular safe harbors and the disclaimers and so on, but I am tempted to say a little bit where we are and where we're headed and what sort of funding packages we're looking at. So this is not a solicitation to invest, and certainly not for anybody from the United States. It's good to have lawyers around as well, I guess. Anyway, we have gone through a seed round. We have a number of investors already on board. We're now moving towards our A1 round. We're fairly good ways there, and we're also looking to fund our aircraft. So we're looking at debt and equity funding. This is the slide that I will just briefly flash. Hope no one is taking any pictures, and let's not post this online. We come from a neck of the woods or a part of the world where right now VC capital is a very high risk or risk sort of responsive capital is not readily available. So this is one of the many growth ideas that we've had. The figures hold. I thank you and I welcome your questions. I think I'm spot on time. Thank you.